Every NFL franchise is trying to find that next Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, a guy who went under the radar in school, a guy who went under the radar, someone who could develop in the future, or someone who didn't have those insane college stats. This year, there are a couple of examples. Guys like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson definitely have question marks, but they seem to be a little bit more polished and have more upside than the subject of today's video. The guy we're going to be talking about is Tanner McKee. From the get-go, I've never understood the hype. This is nothing against him or his career, as he was awesome in high school and he had some great moments at Stanford, but I just don't think he's that good, and with him declaring for this year's NFL draft, I think he's making a mistake. In today's video, I'm going to introduce you to Tanner McKee. We're going to go through how he got to this point, go through his Stanford career, his current NFL draft stock, and why I think he's making an NFL mistake. But before we get started, we're so close to 100K, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to support today's video, turn on notifications so you never miss when I upload, and let me know what draft prospect I can cover next. Now, let's talk about Tanner McKee. So Stanford has been pretty good with quarterbacks over the last decade or so. You had Andrew Luck, obviously, and then you had a couple good players in KJ Costello, Keller Christ, and Kevin Hogan. After that, you had Davis Mills, who's now starting in the NFL, and then they turned it over to Tanner McKee. Coming out of high school, McKee was a huge deal. He grew up in California and eventually went to Centennial High School. He ended up blowing up as a senior for multiple reasons. He threw for 2,147 yards with 23 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. Those were good numbers and he didn't turn the ball over. And then combining that with his 6'6" size, this had scouts on notice and he started flying up recruiting boards. His head coach said, quote, "As he gets more experience, he gets better. He needs to always look through his progressions and be able to follow through on his 4th and 5th options, and experience will only help with that." McKee had a lot of big offers. He ended up choosing Stanford over the likes of Alabama, Texas A&M, Texas, and BYU. It was worth noting that McKee was not going to be able to play till 2020, as he was going to go on a 2-year mission for his church. That still didn't stop schools from going after him, and McKee going to Stanford was a huge deal. And McKee going to Stanford was a huge deal for David Shaw. According to 24/7 Sports, McKee was the number 3 pro-style quarterback, a 4-star recruit, and the 38th best player in the class of 2018. Obviously, he wasn't the most polished or prepared prospect in the world, but if they could properly develop him, McKee had an NFL future. McKee would play in one game in 2020 against Oregon, but that was the Davis Mills year. Last year, he ended up winning the starting job, and in their first game against Kansas State, he threw for 118 yards and a touchdown. The following weekend after that, he had 3 total touchdowns and they went over number 14 USC, and this was still one of the best games of his career to this point. He had a couple of others though. He had 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against UCLA, 230 yards and 3 touchdowns against Oregon, and then 273 yards and 3 touchdowns in a close loss to Washington State. He also had 3 more against Washington, and last season he actually was pretty decent. He finished with 2,327 yards with 15 touchdowns and 7 picks. He also had 4 scores on the ground and completed nearly 66% of his passes. That 6'6" frame was looking awfully nice, and he was showing why he could become a big NFL prospect down the road. Except he would need to have a big 2022 season. Scouts wanted to see another year under the belt for him, and this is where McKee ended up hurting himself. Against Colgate, he did throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 picks against USC, and then had his best game of the year against Washington with 286 yards and 3 touchdowns. But after that, it went downhill quick. In his last 7 games, he didn't throw a touchdown in 4 of them, and only had 1 touchdown in 3 of them. He basically disappeared as the season went on, and that showed in the win-loss column too. Besides 2 close victories over Arizona State and Notre Dame, Stanford lost their last 5 games. McKee was absolutely awful against the best defense he played in Utah, and he finished the season with 2,947 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 8 picks. He had pretty much no mobility, his completion percentage went down, his touchdown to interception ratio got worse, he wasn't winning games, and at times it just looked like his confidence was completely broken. Yes, Stanford was a complete dumpster fire this year, but Tanner decided he was not going to wait around for the new coaching staff or try to transfer to another school. He was going to declare while he had some stock, and that is what he did. I think this is a big mistake though. To play devil's advocate though, let's see why some people are high on him. They love his arm, they love his build, and they love his IQ. That's really it. He pretty much has that NFL prototype, but they want to see him develop. Most scouts are blaming his lack of production on a bad offensive line and bad play calling, and to be honest, I think they're just trying to push a certain narrative. McKee obviously has a lot to work on, and everyone was expecting a big season out of him. I personally think he's making a mistake though. Right now I think he'll be a late day 2 or day 3 selection, and that's not going to get you a lot of money or a lot of opportunity. Yes, I guess he technically would get drafted, but let's say he comes back with their new system or transfers to a different school. he could have had a much better year, put a lot of those worries to rest, and if he went to a different school, he could have really blown up and changed the game for himself. Instead, he's banking on himself being a day 2 pick that blossoms into something more, and this reminds me a lot of Davis Mills. It's almost scary how similar these two players are, but in my eyes, McKee is making a mistake, and I think he should have came back for another year or gone to a different school. But what the heck do I know? What do you guys think? What is your opinion on Tanner McKee? If you're a Stanford fan, what went wrong for McKee this year? And what player, topic, or quarterback should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, and check out all other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.